Hello there, it's Jan here from JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me today. I have a new tutorial for you today, and I'm going to call this one a double front card. It's one that I've designed using products from my stash, and I'll show you those in a second. Very much what the ethos of the channel is here at JB Crafts. I want to encourage people to delve into their stash and use what you've got. We are all guilty of buying new products, and I'm the same. I went out with my daughter a couple of days ago and still couldn't resist buying a couple of new paper pads, which I haven't used yet, but I'm sure they will come into the play. And I've talked about this before, I've got enough paper pads here to probably decorate the whole house with 12 by 12, 8 by 8, 6 by 6 paper pads, and I am not kidding. But yeah, I have a bit of an addiction to paper. So yeah, delve into that stash, have a look what you've got. You may not have this particular collection that I'm going to use today, but you might have something that will work. So the reason I've called it a double front is because it's got two elements to the front. So we've got this lovely collage piece on the front, which has been stamped and coloured with my alcohol markers, and I'll show you these elements as we go along. I'm not going to do the colouring today because it does take a little while. So we've got elements ready. I've used papers from the collection as well, and I'll show you that in a second. And then the double front, it opens to have another front element in the card, and I've used an embossing folder here. And this one wasn't actually part of the collection, but I love the idea of the brickwork around the outside of it. And then when you open again, you've got your inside and where you can write the message to the recipient. So lots of connections. As you can see, my theme here is Alice in Wonderland. We've got the little drink me potion, we've got the Mad Hatter's hat, the playing cards, the clock, and we've got the hearts inside here, and then that lovely sentiment. This is my dream, and I'll decide where I go from here. And I just think it was a really nice quote to have inside. So the collection that I used is an old Crafter's Companion subscription box or craft box, and this was a special one that was done that was just themed through the looking glass, so it was all to do with Alice in Wonderland. And any of you that collect these, I know some of you may have this in your current stash, even though it's been out a while now, but any of you that collect these know that you've got pretty much everything in here to make a project. So I've used the stamps from here, which I'll show you. I've used one of the stencils, I've used some of the papers. The embossing folder was a different one, and I'll show you that as we go along. But yeah, just mixing and matching this with popping it in with things that are in your stash just to get going with it. So yeah, through the looking glass, if you've got this one, dig it out and you'll be able to have a go at this particular project. If not, like I said, this could be any theme. You know, you could go masculine with this. If you've got the sort of the timepiece, you could put cogs and things on here. You could go very pretty with this with a different color scheme and have, you know, sort of the butterflies, the usual things. So yeah, lots of different ways of doing it. I've incorporated some of my nesting dies, which I'll show you, and then we've got a little bit of distress oxiding going on the embossing folder. So let's get into the tutorial and I'll show you how I've actually popped this one together. So the first piece that I started with was a piece of craft card. Because of the colourways, this was the piece of paper that I've used, and because of the colourways in here, I wanted to go sort of fairly neutral with the background. So I've gone for the craft card, and then we're picking out, you know, the reds were quite prominent in here. We've got that lovely sort of shade of sandy brown colour which we're going to use. We've got the timepieces in here, and the portion that I've cut off had the hat on it as well. The hearts in there. So yeah, it was all sort of, this was the inspiration for the colour scheme of the card. They were double-sided papers. I haven't actually used that B side. I have used this particular side, and I've cut a strip off each side, which I'll show you when we get to that part of the project. So my piece of craft card then is 7 inches square. So I'm going to end up, this one is actually 7 by 5, which is a fairly standard size here in the UK. And as always, I know there's a lot of you watching from the States. You could very easily incorporate these measurements into your A2 style card. So I've cut it at 7 by 7, and then I've scored it at 5 inches, which has created me my 5 by 7 background panel, and then a 2-inch panel here on the front of the card. So I'm just going to reinforce that score line here with my bone folder. And that's actually the outside section of the card. So you can see here we've got that piece that opens up, and then my front panel has been attached to this part of the card. And then the inside panel started out as a piece of white card, and this one measures 9.5 across by 6 3/4. So when this is folded, it will be 1/4 of an inch smaller in dimension. We'll end up with 4 3/4 across by 6 3/4, so that just nests nicely and leaves that little bit of border. You can see there the craft border around the edge before we get to the white piece. Now I have done a little bit of prep with this, but I'm going to do the rest of it with you guys. So we'll put this one to one side. Okay, I've scored this down the middle at 4 3/4 to create my panel. And then when I fold this in half, we've actually got that element that is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. Now I've got my masking tape on here ready, and I have added some of my coloured ink to this ready, because it does take a little while, but I'm going to do some of it with you on camera. So the first layer that I chose was antique linen. And I've just used one of my blending brushes and popped on sort of quite a sketchy layer. I didn't want it to be solid. It is quite sort of patchy in area, and I'm okay with that because this is actually the background element. We're going to do some more work on there. So the next thing I want to do is emboss this. And again, I chose an embossing folder out of my stash, which is again, it's a Crafter's Companion one. A lot of you know that I used to work for Crafter's Companion, so I have quite a few of their products. And this one was from a Nature's Garden collection, and it's the fairy garden, and it's called Hidden Garden, and it's just got that lovely brickwork element around the outside. It was fairly neutral. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop my front of my card in here, line it up with that panel, and we're going to just pop this through the embossing machine, the die cutting and embossing machine. So I just want to make sure that it's as central as I can get it in there, like so. Close that down, and then I am just going to pass this through my die cutting machine, which, as a lot of you know, is actually sat behind me. So this one is actually a 3D folder, so I need to make sure that I get my right set of plates there. So let me just grab those from behind me, and what I need is a cutting plate and my magnetic shim. Then I'm going to pop my folder in, and again I'm going to keep this side level with the edge of the plates, okay? And then we're going to pop the plastic shim as the top one. So any of you that's using the Gemini, the two cutting plates that we would use for a normal embossing folder are too thick. So we just need to alter that plate combination, and then I am going to pop that through my Gemini, which, as you know, just sits behind me on the desk behind me here. And we'll pop that through there, remove the plates, those that have done their job, and pop those back over there for a second. And then this should have pressed that lovely image into our card here. Now, yes, it does warp it a little bit, but by the time we've finished with it, it will be fine. So you can see there now we've got that gorgeous brickwork detail. There's a little bit of greenery, and we're going to highlight that a bit more now with the inks, just so that it stands out. So I'm just going to bring my mat in to protect the surface of the desk, and I've got one of my brown blending brushes, and we're going to add a couple of sections of brown here. So I've got brush corduroy, which is quite a little bit lighter, and frayed burlap. Okay, so we're going to start off with the brush corduroy. Just get all those in there ready. And what I'm going to do is just build up round the edges of here. So tap a little bit off, come in from the corners, and I want to come in from those edges round where the bricks are, so that you can see that definition on the embossing folder. I want to leave the centre of it in that antique linen, that lovely sort of pale creamy yellow colour. All right, so that it gives the illusion that it's lighter in that centre, so you're actually looking into the scene. Now I'm going to bring this one into the design, So it's creating like that sort of halo in the middle there. And then we're going to add the darker shade of brown just round the edges. So as much or as little. You could do this with your distress inks if you don't have the oxides, and you can do it pretty much with any of your dye-based inks. So again, yeah, I'm just going to bring this round and create that kind of hazy halo bit in the middle there. And you can see how that embossing, it's picked it up already and created that that definition. And then I'm going to take my yellow one again, and just where I've got that centre part, I've not put any more ink on it, but I'm just going to push back some of that brush corduroy and blend it into that centre area so that it's not as definite there. Yeah. And then I'm going to bring in my third one, which is frayed burlap, which is a little bit darker. Okay. And we're going to use the same brush. And I'm just going to come not quite as far in this time. So I'm going to bring this round the edge again and darken up those edges, but not come quite as far into the centre this time. I tend to start at the corners because those are usually the most defined area. So yeah, just where those panels are with the bricks, a little bit around the bottom there. And I think we're pretty good with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my cloth here and give that a little bit of a scrub because I want to get rid of that darker brown. And then again, we can just go over the whole thing and blend that brush corduroy into, push it back into the frayed burlap there so that we've got a nice blend on there. So that's my inking done. We'll pop those to one side and pop that out of the way. So again, we've got a mixture of antique linen, frayed burlap, or they were that way around, brush corduroy, and then the frayed burlap. Okay, so I'll put those to one side. Those have done their job. Put the brushes to one side, and then I did have a piece of masking tape to protect the back of my card, although this is going to be stuck into the card so it wouldn't show anyway, but it just protected it a little bit. And then I'm going to use my water spritzer here, my distress sprayer. This has just got ordinary water in, and from quite a height I am going to sort of spritz some droplets onto that background. Because this is distress oxide, you know, they're made to work with water. Now the longer you leave that bit, the better it works, but obviously from the purpose of video we don't want to be sat here watching that do its job. So all I'm going to do is take my roll, my kitchen roll here, and I'm just going to roll it across. You can see there where it's picking up some of those specks of water, and you get that lovely mottled finish on it like so. You can see where it's just pulled out some of the bits of ink. It'll start that oxidization process. It will also help with the blend as everything dries. So I'm just going to give that a little tiny blast now with my heat tool, and we'll pop that to one side and let it dry. And I'm going to pop something heavy on it so that it helps to flatten it out while we work on the card and the panel. So just a little bit. It wasn't particularly wet, it was just where I'd sprayed the water on. And then you can manipulate that back into shape. Okay, and then now, can you see where, now this is actually worth pointing out. You sort of do this and you think, well, what's happened to my card? But anytime you pop a card through an embossing folder, it will shrink or extend in places. So I've got this little tiny edge here now, which I am going to trim off because the OCD there doesn't like that bit. So I'm just going to pop this in my sort of mini trimmer here, and I'm just going to trim it level with the back of the card so that when it closes you've got that nice flush edge there. And this is going to slot when it's finished inside the back of here. Okay, so we can actually take the masking tape off, and then, as I say, we'll leave this to dry. So I'll just pull that back, and I tend to roll it rather than tear it off. I find I get a better finish that way. Okay, and then we'll leave this one. As I say, I'm going to pop it, I'm going to pop my plates on the top of it, I think. My cutting plates there. And just pop those on the top of it. I'm just going to pop it down here on the top of my trimmer there while we get on with the next part of the tutorial. So yeah, I don't know how I managed that, but I've managed to get ink off the side of my mat, even though I popped it there to keep the desk clear. So we'll just give that a little bit of a wipe, and then we'll get on to that next element. So what we're going to do next is that main panel here. We're going to pop some paper on and create that main panel. So what I've got from that sheet that I showed you here, I've actually cut, this piece came off this side here, and this one, they were both off that side, yeah, like so. So you can see there where we've got the pieces of the hat and we've got the cups and saucers. Okay, so I've cut these to fit. The slightly longer one here is going to fit the outside of the card. So this is 6 3/4 by 1 3/4. Okay, and then the shorter one is the piece that I'm going to pop on the inside of that piece that we've just finished with the ink. So it's slightly shorter. This one will be 6 1/2 by 1 3/4. All right, so I've just come 1/4 of an inch smaller each time with the dimensions. So I'm going to pop that one to one side for a second until we come back to the insert. We will get that piece stuck down on the outside ready. So just using that all-purpose glue as always, and apply some to the back. Again, I usually say this, you know, adhesive is a personal choice. Not everybody likes the wet adhesive. Some people prefer the tape runners or the double-sided tape. Whatever your favourite is, you go for. I love the wet glue because it just gives you that chance to move everything into place before you commit to it sticking down. So that's my front panel. Okay, and then we're going to create that top panel here. All right, so I've actually made a start on this, and I've used my stitched rectangle nesting dies and chose a couple that work together, and I've cut the back one out of the craft card to make like a matte layer, and then I've cut a piece of the paper with the next size down. So just to give you a quick indication of those for any of you that want to follow it to the measurements, this one measures 4 1/8 by 3 3/8. So that was the matte layer in the craft card. And then the smaller one for the panel on the front would be 3 inches by 3 3/4 inches. And I've cut this one again out of some white cardstock, which I'll come back to in a second. That's going to be for this panel is the same size as the paper panel on the front here. So just a couple of nesting dies. If you don't have stitch ones, you can use ordinary ones, and if you don't have nesting dies, you could just cut a couple of panels with your paper trimmer or your guillotine. So what we're going to do is we're going to build up some detail on here, then we're going to add it to our card, leaving roughly the same border all the way around the edge. So I'm going to build this up first, pop that one to one side, and as I say, I've got lots of bits already done. So in the craft box that I used, there was the stamp set here, and again, as I say, I've got bits ready just so that it made it a little bit quicker. So I've stamped out the Mad Hatter's hat there, and I'll show you the colours that I've used because I've kept to the same colour scheme with all of them. I've got the little Drink Me bottle. I've created a couple of the playing cards, and I've done the timepiece there as well, and the little bow. All right, now I've only used sort of 3 or 4 colours because I wanted to keep it in tone with that backing paper. So those are what we're going to use first off with the panel. Some of these I've got foam tape on ready, and some of them I'm going to pop flat. Now the colours that I used for these, let's have a little look. We have got, I just left them to one side here. As I say, I picked out colours that I wanted to use and just kept it really, really nice and simple. So for all the brown shades, I went to the paper again and I had a look at what was happening in the paper and picked out this sort of sandy brown colour, which in my tri-blends was the gold brown blend. So I've used those 3 blends to do the hat, to do the edge of the timepiece and the cork in the bottle there. Then I needed a red one, and again I've mentioned this before, that I have a mixture of the tri-blend, the original pens and the brush markers, so it just depends what's on hand and which combination of colours they are. So I've used the reds to create those red elements to pick up the red in the paper there. And then I went with sort of this turquoisey green. There was a little bit of blue, but I like this turquoisey green, so green turquoise blend, and I've used that for the drink, for the bow there, and just the highlight with the leaves on the hat. And then I've used a little bit of my ice grey just to add some shadow around the inside of the clock, the label on here, and the edge of the glass bottle. So again, just restricting the colours makes it a little bit easier for you to manage. And as I say, it was inspired by the paper, and then I've used the red one again in here. So that's where we've arrived at. So what I'm going to do then is start and put some of this together. So the first thing that I did was pop the timepiece down on my design. I'm going to follow the same design that I did last time. So I fussy cut these. There are a set of dies in the box. Okay, there was one for the watch actually, but I'd already started cutting. But a lot of these are additional elements. So you've got the little hare here, you've got the Cheshire Cat. I love that you've got the playing suits here for the cards. You've got Alice, beautiful frame. You could make the looking glass with that. And then you've got a drink me, eat me, the key. So yeah, lots of different elements in there. So most of these, in fact all of these, I fussy cut out with my little fussy cutting scissors. So I'm going to add my acrylic glue to the back of these where I've got them flat, and we're just going to create that little collage of all the different sort of icons from the Alice in Wonderland theme. Now, like I said, you know, you may not have this collection, so it may be that you want to pop a different sort of collection of items together. But just collaging them like this just makes for a really nice focal point. So then we're actually going to use the 2 little playing cards, and I'm just going to pop these together. I'm going to stick a little bit of glue on this bottom corner here and just overlap these a little bit so that we've got that bit of both of them showing. And then I need a little bit of scrap to go under here now. Just because I've lifted that up, I tend to use my scrap card, and quite often I'm currently rummaging in the bin because, yeah, that's where a lot of the scrap card lives. So you can see here, this was actually the piece that I've cut the bottle out of. So I'm just going to use a piece of that, and I just want to cut a little scrap that will fit. Let's have a look. We need to just cut just to lift that edge. And again, you know, it's only minimal here. I've only got 1 bit of card, but just stops it wobbling about. And the fact that I'm going to put some more on top of it as well, I just want to build up that side there to give it a chance to be the same height as the other card. And then we're going to pop glue on the back of, whoops, don't throw it about, Jan, on the back of this one. And I'm going to add this one to the collage. So we're going to come to this side. I'm going to keep it roughly level with the edge of the clock. And that little piece of card under here is just supporting that edge that was slightly higher than the card underneath. Give that chance to grab. And then for these ones, I've actually put some foam on the back of these. So I've got little pop-up foam pieces on here. We'll just take the backing off, and then I'm going to pop these down here. So this one's going to go towards the bottom edge here, and then the hat, I've just popped them at the bottom again to support, because the top of the hat is going to overlap those cards, those playing cards. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit of acrylic glue there, and this one is going to sit here, and you can see where it's overlapping the cards. So we'll just pop that one down there. The bow I'm going to put on in a second once we've got our sentiment on there. And the sentiment, this particular sentiment was from another set. I just wanted something to fit on here, and I've just gone for May All Your Wishes Come True, which I thought was really nice. And we're going to pop this on. I'm going to do this one when I get to the actual construction of the card, because I want to see the positioning of this over the other layer. So we'll leave those two bits for a second, and we'll bring the other components back in now. So I'm just going to give that glue its lid so that it doesn't dry, and we'll pop these to one side. So I've got my card blank, I've got my panel that was currently sitting under those plates, and you can see, yeah, it's got a little bit of a wobble on it, but by the time we've got everything together it will be fine. So what I'm going to do is pop some tape, or you can put glue, whatever you fancy, on the back of here like so. And we're going to adhere this to the inside of the card. So it's like popping a sentiment inside, but it's just creating a little bit more interest with that double front panel. Okay, so this one's now, we'll get rid of the measurements. This one's going to fit inside here like so. Now I don't think I cleaned my mat last time I used it by the look of this. I've got some going on in here. Okay, so not too worried about it, but yeah, I would have preferred it to be nice and crisp and clean. So yeah, that's a note to self. Remember to clean the mat next time. So just before we do that, I am going to pop in there that strip of card paper, sorry, the pattern paper from the collection. So this is just going to bring that link to the front there, and again, as I say, just slightly smaller. So this will be 6.5 by 1 3/4. It's the same width as the one at the front, but just a little bit less to fit on the inside there. And I'm going to take the tape off the back here, and just because we're going on to craft card, which is very, very absorbent, it's a very fibrous cardstock, I am going to put a little bit of my wet glue as well. So you might say, well, why are you doing both, Jan? And it's just force of habit. But as I say, the craft card in particular is very, very fibrous. So what I want to do then is I want to centre this in the middle of that 5 by 7 panel, so that I've got a little bit showing all the way round the edge there. Give that a good press down, and then we've got sort of the makings of the card, and you can see now where this one's going to come in and sit at the top. So I've already popped a piece of tape on the back of here, and I am going to put a line of the wet glue, because this is going to go here like so, and it was too narrow to put another line of tape. I am going to put a little bit of that acrylic glue, and then what I want to do is just eyeball the 3 sides, so this left, the top and the right hand side, to sort of get this as level and as even as I can. That looks good to me. So I've only got glue under the section that's going to stick to this panel here, so that opens up fully. So again, we'll just give that a good press down. And now that I've got that in position, I can add these other 2 elements. So again, I've got some tape under here. I am using more tape at the minute. And the reason for that is that I've got some really nice double-sided adhesive from Sticks 2. And I'm quite confident in its ability to do the job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this one hanging off this first panel a little bit here, which is why I've only put tape on the left hand side there, and I'm just going to nestle that one in about there. And then I've got foam pad on the back of the little bow, and we're just going to pop that in as an extra sort of feature, and again tying in that green part of the theme here. We've got the 1, 2, and then this is going to be the 3rd part of the green. So again, you know, that rule of thirds, we've got 1, 2, 3 elements of red. We've got 1, 2, 3 elements of the brown, and now we've got 1, 2, and this is the third element of the green. So yeah, I'm just going to nestle that in that edge, and I've only put the foam pads on this so that that little bit that overhangs is not going to have, because that bit's going to show here. Okay, so just get that in place. That's the front of my card done there. And then the last thing we're going to do is just finish off the insert for inside. So again, I'll pop this to one side, and I've got that same size panel. I didn't map this one, I've just gone straight on the background, and I'm just going to do a little bit of sort of inking and stuff on the back of there, just to finish it off. So what I'm going to do is, I think somewhere there is ink, so I'm just going to give that a little spray, because I think that's what I picked up on the back of that card. It's where I'd used it previously and clearly not cleaned it off. So yeah, I've started doing this one. So I've cut it out with that same nested rectangle here, the smaller of the two. I've stamped in there my stamped sentiment, which was part of the kit. Let me just grab that one for you. So this was an extra stamp in the kit here. So I've just stamped that out with some of my VersaFine Clair into the middle there. And then also in the kit, you've got lots of stencils. This is just one of them, and it's got all the suits on, checkerboard. It's got some extra elements and the lettering as well. But I just wanted the hearts, and you can see where I've popped this down and gone through here with some red ink. Now, I didn't even re-ink the brush. I've just used what was on here. And I want to add a little bit as well to this inside corner, just again to balance what's going off up here. So I'm just going to hold it with my hand there, and I'm just going to use whatever residual ink is left on the brush. It was just a hint of something going on in those corners to link it again to the outside. So that's all I want to do with the embossing. And then I've also got the playing card left here, whoops, which is what we used for the front. So this is what created the card here, and I'm going to use the black ink on that one, and I'm just going to partially stamp this onto the bottom here, just to give that outline. And again, it's just linking it to the front of the card. So let that ink transfer, and you've just got that image there at the bottom. Give that a good clean, and then we'll pop that back in the packet. So yeah, this one's good to go. And what we're going to do with this one now is pop it inside our card that we're on. So I'm going to open this up again. As I say, I've gone a bit wild with my tape recently, and because this is just going straight onto cardstock and that paper, I'm not even going to do anything else with it. I'm just going to use it as it is. And again, I want to position it so that I've got about sort of the same, roughly, either side, maybe a little bit higher at the top, but you've got that sort of piece of paper linking it together. And you've got the hearts, which link it to the front with the card, and then you've got the little playing card edge there, just to link everything together. And then finally, in that set, there were some little tiny heart sequins in there. So again, I've just popped those into one of my little spare pots, and I added just 3 of those in here, just as, again, because they were part of the collection. So I've used those in lieu of my gems. You know that they've normally got gems on. I added one on the bow there, a gem, and then the 3 little hearts. I was going to start putting them on the inside, but then realised, oh, actually, no, let's calm down. And then there is just one more thing, which there, oh, it's there. Yeah, this is not actually from the set, but I just like this as an additional feature there inside. This is actually one of my own dies from my stash that I've had a while. And again, I've not got the packaging for a lot of them because I group these in sets. So for example, I've got fences and gates all together in here, and then the grass ones in there. So yeah, I'm not always sure which pack these come from. They're just ones that I've had for a little while. So what I've done is I've cut that with some brown card, like so. And I'm just going to pop that. I just thought that sign, you know, fit in with the theme. And I'm just going to pop that on the inside here as just as an extra feature. You know, it's not necessary. It was just there as an extra feature. So I'm just going to add some little bits of glue onto those edge pieces. And then we'll pop that, and that'll be our final element for the card. So just so that those outside edges are stuck down. And this is going to be trapped inside the card, so it's not as if it's going to get damaged as such. So yeah, I'm just going to lay this one down on the inside here, and I just thought it was a nice little feature just to finish off. So yeah, I'm going to pop that down. Not got any of my wax paper handy today, so we'll just give it a press with the old cloth. And I think we're just about finished there now, so let's put the lids on the glue out of the way. And we'll have a look at that design now. So that double front design, I'll bring you the one in that's got the hearts on. You can see there we've got the ink does lighten up. You can see there's a slight difference. So as it dries, it does lighten up a little bit. But you can see there that double front. So we've got that lovely collage sort of going on the front, the little shiny bits from the hearts, and then you open the first part of it to reveal the little signpost, and then looking into that scene, and then inside you've got your sentiment with that, all that link to the front going on again. So that's my design for today. All things Alice in Wonderland. I've really enjoyed playing with that. As I say, I've been doing some tidying in the craft room and I keep coming across things. I think I've not used that for ages. So yeah, dig through that stash, see what you've got, see what you can put together. So if you've enjoyed the tutorial today, please consider giving it a thumbs up for me. If you've just come across the channel and you're not a subscriber, I would love to have you so that you know next time I'm uploading, and I'll be back very soon with another tutorial for you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day now, and I'll see you soon. Bye.